time meeting between these two. Just about set, ready to go. A veteran officiating crew pacing the charge. Bill Covington Jr., Jeb Hartness, Tim Comer underway. And the opening tap controlled by the Cards. And kind of a weird game back on Tuesday night at the world's most famous arena. Louisville just struggled offensively, Corey, and trying to bounce back after suffocating Michigan a week ago. We'll see if it happens here.
You know, the difference with this game, of course, Eastern Kentucky, you mentioned their pace and the way they like to play, turning teams over. It doesn't really allow for Louisville to work on the areas where they were concerned, except for the turnovers. But other than that, their offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency don't really come into play as much in this game, simply because of the pace of play that the Cardinals will like to play with.
Hobbs off the mark from downtown. Offensive rebound, and the putback is good by Moreno.
But you see immediately when Eastern Kentucky scores, you're going to see full court pressure, and they're going to try to see any way they can to turn the Cards over and try to find offense off of those turnovers. A.W. Hamilton, coach for East Kentucky, has talked to us about the fact that his team struggles to score as Ryan McMahon has come up with an early injury, and this is not good for the Cards at all. Didn't really see anything on that play, but limping off the floor.
Now McMahon, his production has steadily increased over the course of his career here. Now averaging 10 points per contest coming in, a three-point specialist.
That's concerning, simply because I don't believe that there was any type of contact on that injury. Reaching down to that foot, definitely don't want to speculate on anything, but concerning to say the least for the Cardinal faithful here. He's the only player, I believe, for Louisville that made a three-pointer in that loss versus Texas Tech, so he provides a lot of their outside punch.
Cards 3 of 17 from downtown. Perry on the other end, off the mark. And the rebound controlled by Ty Taylor. EKU located in Richmond, Kentucky, about 100 miles from the Yum Center. We'll work it inside. Darius Hicks, a transfer from NC State, turns it over. And on the fast break, Nwora. The easiest basket he'll have all season.
Yeah, that's the Achilles heel, of course, for Eastern Kentucky. Although they love to turn over their opponents, they're a team that turns it over at a rapid rate. So when you see shots go up for them, it's a benefit and a successful offensive trip, especially when that young man, Jamaro Brown, gets a look at the basket.
Couple of early looks, nothing doing. Sutton is hammered attacking. Jordan Nwora, the first team preseason AP All-American in action once again today.
And Jordan Nwora has been special all season long, has led the Cardinals in scoring every game this season. And as you mentioned earlier, it doesn't get any easier than that for Jordan Nwora, the ACC's preseason player of the year, averaging at 20 points per game right now.
One more for Sutton, who has all three. Check that 3 of Louisville's 5 points so far. Senior from right here in the Ville. Look what Chris Mack said this week. Sutton's a warrior for us. He does so many different things. Sometimes doesn't show up in the box score. The Card's going to make a deep run of the postseason. He's going to be an integral part of it.
Well, he's the ultimate glue guy because he's not concerned about his individual stats other than rebounding, and that's one stat that you want your team to be selfish about. But you see the three-pointer knocked down by Taylor on the nice skip pass, and you see the pressure that Eastern Kentucky puts on you, but it often opens up many opportunities on the other side of the floor when you handle the basketball, get it out of trap, and right there Jordan Nwora knocking down the 3.
He's got 5. The Louisville lead is 4. Here comes Brown, 4th leading scorer in the OVC, and he's off the mark. Sutton controls. And for the turnover, Brown. A little too fancy in that sequence. Even fancy on the other side, and there's Enoch.
Beautiful find from Darius Perry, a half-court lob. Ends up being the finish for Enoch. And Perry operating at about a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio on the season, but struggled against Texas Tech. 0 assists to 6 turnovers. And that's one of the areas where, of course, in my opinion, this Louisville team has to get better. And they've been great at defending the three-pointer, but right now Eastern Kentucky off to a great start from beyond the arc. Brown knocking down one to join Taylor.
Second triple for EKU. One possession game early on. Nwora, the skip pass, had a lot of mustard on it as that one sails out of bounds.
I give Darius Perry a lot of credit for getting back defensively and disrupting an alley-oop on one end of the floor and then finding Stephen Enoch for a beautiful alley-oop on the offensive side of the floor. So Perry getting the job done on both ends of the floor in that possession, but now another turnover for the Cards. And again, in a game where you know that there are going to be turnovers because that's the style of play that Eastern Kentucky plays, you have to be locked in. And I'm sure that's one of the things that Chris Mack has talked to his team about all week long, is trying to find a way to be better handling the basketball. And not off to a great start from that aspect early, but they're going to get good looks when you consider once you break the pressure of Eastern Kentucky, you're going to have wide open shots on the backside.
Off the turnover. Cards in transition, the easy finish. Enoch with 4 to make it 13-8. And it'll stay on this end. First media timeout coming up. Jordan Nwora, get to know him a little bit. More deeper level after this. Stay tuned.
Want to be aggressive offensively, and he's done a much better job defensively within the scheme of what Chris Mack wants him to do this year. Always been an incredible rebounder, and now you see him becoming the best player and the leader of what could be a national championship caliber team. And I'm sure a setback on Tuesday won't affect Jordan Nwora from doing what it is that he does best, which is try to help this Louisville Cardinal team win games.
Hobbs the basket. Good news for Cards fans. Ryan McMahon getting set to check back in. Got a closer look at that injury before, or right as we were in break there, Corey, and it looked like that he kind of came down awkwardly on his left foot.
And that's great news, and great news to see him back at the scores table, because, of course, when I didn't see anything initially, I had flashbacks of the 2 times where I had a non-contact injury that ended up being a stress fracture. So I wanted to make sure that that was not the case for Ryan McMahon. And I'm happy to see that he actually, and it doesn't sound right, but he does turn his ankle, turn that left ankle on the foot of, I believe, Taylor coming over in the trap. So that is good news, and of course great news to see Ryan McMahon back on the floor for the Cards.
Here's a steal on the inbounds. And it'll stay on this end. So McMahon on the floor, appears to be moving around just as he was prior to the injury. Those stress fractures, I mean, those are weird things that happen with ankles, and the problem is, may not look like a lot, but it's one of those things that lingers forever.
Well, and not only that, well, I have 3 screws in mine, so mine doesn't linger anymore. As we see another jumper by Taylor, knocking it down, and just like that, of course, East Kentucky within 1 point. And the crowd here getting a bit anxious as this team has had a couple of slow starts in front of the home crowd as David Johnson gets an entrance into the game, the point guard from the Ville.
Think about what Chris Mack said this week. We were playing the second half against USC Upstate, trailing by 4 about 14 minutes to go. So there have been some slow starts at times for the nation's #1 ranked team, but you want to see that here today.
Well, one of the things, honestly, I think with this team, I think they're still trying to find their identity. And you think about, okay, Johnson didn't get back into the lineup. Well, I'm sorry, a freshman. He didn't play early. Malik Williams, who didn't get back into the lineup until about 4 games in, who sat out a lot of the summer with injury. So they're trying to incorporate, you know, pieces that are going to be strong in their rotation now a month into the season, and trying to find more ways to get Johnson minutes. Trying to find, you know, of course, Malik Williams is going to play split minutes with Stephen Enoch, but they've also looked at playing the 2 of those guys together. So right now, you know, for as good as they've been and ranked #1 nationally, I think Chris Mack is still trying to find the identity of this team and what they're going to be moving forward.
You got to love the fact you can go out, crush Michigan the way in which you did, when there's still a couple of question marks maybe in the backcourt. Who's going to take over that starting point guard spot the way that they need to long term, and yet you're still jumping out to a 9-0 start in the #1 ranking.
Yeah, when you look at it, I mean, and this team has national championship aspirations. So when you think about that, these are not bad problems to have, because, of course, you want for your team to be playing its best basketball in March and April, you know, if you're fortunate to get to that point. So I'm sure that Chris Mack doesn't have the problem with the fact that they have you know, had their struggles, and they're sort of trying to find a way to make things work together, because it gives him an opportunity to keep teaching this team, and it keeps their ears open in comparison to feeling like they've already accomplished something.
5 to shoot. King off the bounce, contested 3 off the mark. The rebound by Trey King, and he has it stripped. Taylor nearly stole it. Outside to Williams, an open look. Count it.
Malik Williams getting the three-point barrage started off for the Cards, who have been a great three-point shooting team all year. Average, you know, 9 three-point field goals made per game. So when you think about this team, their shooting is a strong part of what they do offensively. And that was one of the struggles that they had Tuesday at the Garden. They just were unable to make shots. Ryan McMahon knocked down 2 threes. I don't believe anyone else for the Cards was able to make a three-point shot. But right now, defensively, it's been a bit of a struggle, where they've been strong all season long.
Eastern Kentucky 6 of 11 from the floor so far. Johnson somehow spotted Williams. How about the extra pass, but in and out for McMahon. Nwora connects inside.
But that's what makes Jordan Nwora special. You talk about guys who are scorers. And normally when you have guys that are scorers, they have to rely on the perimeter shot to be able to be successful. Jordan Nwora can go in offensive rebound, finish off putbacks, and you saw great ball movement, but Jordan Nwora not involved in the possession at all. He was attacking the offensive board.
Hobbs over the backboard, back to Louisville.
Jordan Nwora, of course, not the primary option on the offense on that possession, but still working hard to score, going in, grabbing the offensive rebound, and going to the jump hook to finish over the top to give Louisville the 5-point lead. But right now you see the pressure from Eastern Kentucky has definitely started to affect.
Nwora inside.
That pressure was affecting.
He gets ahead of steam going, look out.
But that's the thing, and Coach Dino Gaudio talked to us about that earlier today. Because of the pressure that Eastern Kentucky would bring, once Louisville was able to get the ball across half court, they will get good looks. Probably doesn't get any better looking than the one Jordan Nwora just had on that last possession. But the challenge is playing in the backcourt and making sure you don't turn the basketball over.
Hicks answers on the other side. The lead is 5. We love the ball movement so far for the Cards. Johnson.
I can tell you one of the points of emphasis for Chris Mack and his staff is to try to find more minutes for David Johnson and get him more comfortable. We talked about him coming back off injury, and you've seen they have looked really good with him on the floor at the point guard position at this point. And you know, he could be a guy that could, by the end of the year, maybe be the starting point guard for this Cardinal team.
Remember, he had surgery back at the end of the summer as Nwora is tripped up. Now gaining health, gaining strength, gaining some much-needed PT as well.
Well, and the Cards are operating on all cylinders. Jordan Nwora to the rim with the finish, and David Johnson spotting up, knocking it down to stretch the lead to 8 for the Cards.
Good teams in the ACC. The question is, Corey Alexander, are there any great teams at this juncture?
I do not believe there are any great teams at this juncture. Of course, you know, teams are continuing to get better and better, but I love the fact that there have been 4 number ones to go down. And the reason I like that is because you have no idea who is going to win when we get to March and April. And so, you know, I love the fact, the parity that's in college basketball right now, and you really don't have that true team that allows you to say, oh, well, this team is going to win it, and we know that's the case. Similar to the NBA this year. Things have changed in the NBA, and we're seeing it in college basketball as well.
Cards going to call a timeout. 10:44 remaining here in our first half. Of the Tar Heels for the first time in 33 years.
Well, I believe the Dean Dome opened in 1986. Is that correct?
That
so
is.
86-87 season. And the women's basketball team for the Tar Heels plays at Carmichael, but the men haven't played there forever. And great to see Ryan McMahon back knocking down three-pointers. But I'm sure going to be an exciting atmosphere at Carmichael. We've seen the men for NC State playing at Reynolds, which is now, of course, the Jim Valvano Arena at Reynolds Coliseum. So I like the fact that many of the schools are going to the throwbacks.
You know, we did 2 NIT games last year at Reynolds Coliseum as Eastern Kentucky off the mark. Fresh 20 seconds as Anderson claims the rebound. It was loud. It was packed. Fans are right on top of you. At Carmichael, it's going to be the same vibe tomorrow at 4 o'clock with Wofford in town.
Well, I can tell you where that's not going to happen. UVA won't be playing in the games at University Hall. They blew that up this summer.
And I think we're okay with that.
Hey, wait a minute.
Well,
I love you, Hall.
You made a lot of shots in that. That's right.
Hey, Jordan Moore's making a lot of shots in this building as he knocks down another 3 to stretch the lead for the Cards to 14. And right now, Louisville getting everything they want on the offensive end of the floor and bouncing back with a great shooting performance thus far here this afternoon.
So A.W. Hamilton will utilize a timeout. The Cards have made 10 of their last 11 from the field in the midst of a 16-4 run in the last 5+ minutes.
Well, and you have to contribute it to the fact that Louisville's not turning the basketball over. And when you don't turn the basketball over, you get quality looks. They have a number of guys that can make shots and make plays on the other end of the floor. That was the struggle against Texas Tech. 19 turnovers to only 10 assists in that game. We could talk about the fact that they shot poorly, 34%, but they just flat out just handed the basketball away too many times. Defensively, they held Texas Tech to 40% field goal shooting. You can't be mad about that. That's a very good team that Chris Beard has. But when you don't shoot well and you turn the basketball over, it's going to be a problem. It's hard to beat anyone that way.
By the way, I heard Santa Corey is going to make an appearance later in our broadcast. Is that true?
I mean, you might have teased it a little early.
Santa Corey.
But Santa Corey could be, you know, Santa Corey doesn't go through chimneys, by the way, because I'm not messing up my clothes.
I just want to know if I'm getting anything from Santa Corey this year. I don't know if I'm on the Christmas list or not, but I want to be.
I can tell you right now, you have been on the nice list, which is the reason why you are sitting beside me right now.
Fantastic.
This is your gift.
But you've got a naughty list, you've got a nice list, and we've got some ACC teams, I think, on both sides, too.
On both sides.
Very
on both
good.
Sides. Santa Corey can't give away too much too early. We got to make sure everyone stays tuned.
Colonel's trying to hang around on the road. Not easy so far. Hicks, a wild shot. Does not get the bounce. McMahon so lethal from bonus land. Attacking this time comes up short, and a late whistle means free throws.
And this is a young man that has improved his game each and every year. We talked about him as a redshirt freshman, watching and learning from the veterans, and now he is a veteran. You see, this is something that Ryan McMahon couldn't do years ago. There was no way he would have been able to probe in the lane and be patient enough to find that shot opportunity and get to the free throw line, where, of course, he's lethal as well. So, you know, but you see the steady improvement in McMahon and his ability to be able to be a contributor to this team, averaging 10 points per game on the season, one of the 3 double-figure scorers that Louisville has in their lineup. And, you know, a young man that's really provided solid contribution.
He gets a shot up, I don't care from where it is. I feel like it's going in every time.
Well, the thing is, you know, they all look good. Let's start with the fact that his shot is a beautiful shot. So when it looks that good, you always have the, you know, mindset of it's going in. And so now you think about the fact that he's shooting, I believe, 48% from 3. So that means he's pretty much making 1 out of every 2 threes that he shoots. And that's a pretty high clip to say that, you know, Ryan McMahon may be one of the best shooters in the country.
Baseline triple off the mark for Taylor. Here come the Cards. Midst of an 11-0 run, Williamson lost the handle. Is stealed by Ty Taylor. EKU out of the OVC. Picked 9th in the conference this year. It's the Ohio Valley Conference. Many folks will remember Ja Morant, Murray State. Off glass. I didn't hear him call it,
It's
Corey.
early enough.
I didn't hear him call it.
12:27 Eastern time. Many banks don't close until 12:30. It's early enough for him not to have to call bank and still get it.
The bank's open on Saturday. I didn't realize that. I don't know what the line is.
Oh, we got to get you with a new bank.
Williams left open. And a foul inside will go to the other side.
You see the lefty off the glass. No need to call it. That's a horse shot right there. Of course, Eastern Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, the state of horses. You got to be able to have great horse shots if you play for a team in the state of Kentucky.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there?
Nicely done.
It took me a while to make it happen, but eventually it got there.
32-19, under 8 to play in our first half. Cardinals coming in #1 in the country, 9-1. Get Miami, Ohio up next before a trip over to Lexington.
That was another attempt. Well, maybe not an attempt, but almost another bank three. I'm not sure that they tried to do it. This young man right here, Stephen Enoch, when he catches the basketball, right hand, left hand, it does not matter. He is great in the paint finishing. I would love to see him be more of a focal point of their offense because he's pretty much unguardable around the rim.
Real quick, where's the hook shot in college basketball in this day and age? It's disappeared. Enoch was beautiful in the paint right there. Coming up next, Scott Satterfield's going to join us in case you haven't heard. The ACC Coach of the Year, year 1, here in the Ville.
Coming in into this arena, being introduced, did this just give you a sense of what you're walking into with, of course, the school spirit that's here at Louisville?
Absolutely. You get in here, you know, standing ovation when I came out on the court, unbelievable atmosphere, great fans here at Louisville. It's you know, such an honor to be the head coach here and to be, you know, be associated with this university.
Walk us through the season because you guys are going to play Mississippi State in the Music City Bowl. You mentioned some ups and some downs, but at 7-5, really the single best turnaround in the country this year. How did it happen?
Well, you know, it started really about that time I showed up here on this court, and you know, ended up hiring our staff. And the one thing we wanted to do was put our arms around these guys and just love on them. Really, we got into this situation. There was not a lot of confidence. People didn't want to come to our building. They didn't want to work out and train and practice and all those things. And so we had to do that first. We had to develop trust and consistency. And to our guys' credit, they were able to buy into that. And we had a great off season. And you know, you just parlayed in and some wins. I think the very first time I thought we maybe had a chance was against Notre Dame. That was our first game. It was on Monday night, national TV. Our kids came out and played extremely hard. We were in that game at halftime, and you're thinking, man, we may have a chance this year. So we just built off of that.
Colonel's back to work. Your relationship with Coach Mack, I know you guys live in the same neighborhood. And we saw some interesting shenanigans in the Twitterverse just here within the last week. You were named the ACC Coach of the Year. He's TP in your house, Coach.
This right here.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Well, I'm going to get him too. You know, so what the bad thing about it is I'm out recruiting that whole week right there. So I wasn't even at the house. My wife had to go out and clean up the yard at 12 o'clock.
I was going to ask. Of course, you've got 3 high schoolers. Why is your wife cleaning up the house? You got the young people to do that.
Well,
Coach.
because they did it so late. They were in the bed. It was like midnight.
Oh no, I mean, Coach, that's got to stay until the morning.
That's what I thought. My wife said, yeah, you don't realize. I thought it was just that one small tree. My wife said, you don't realize. It was a lot of trees. So, but you know, everybody asked me, hey, are you going to get him back? Absolutely. But I'm going to wait for a big moment. So he's got to win the ACC, hopefully, and then his yard's going to be in trouble.
Well, I know Chris Mack very well, and I can imagine he would gladly have his yard toilet paper if he's able to win the ACC and would appreciate you doing so.
Absolutely. He'll love it. You know, our volleyball team just made the Final 8 volleyball, so her yard is kind of right now a little bit nervous. So we're going to see how far she can go with that team right there. But no, I'm going to tell you what it does. It speaks of the kind of people that we have in this athletic department. Great people, and that's where it starts. And Vince Tyree's done an unbelievable job of putting together the kind of staff that we have here. It's a joy for us to come to work every day because of the kind of people we work with.
So this time of year, I know you guys are involved in a lot of recruiting, kind of doing some self-scouting, getting ready for the bowl game. From your perspective, Coach Satterfield, what's really front and center on the agenda right now?
Yeah, you know, for us right now is signing day, which is next Wednesday. You know, we're on that final push right now. We have, you know, 10 prospective student athletes that are on our campus right now with OVs. A lot of these guys have already, you know, pledged to come to play for us here. But you got to hang on. You know, it's that time of year. You know, I call it poaching season. So some of these other schools are out there trying to look at some of our guys. But we got to do a great job. I think we've sold our school well. These guys, a lot of these guys have already, you know, pledged back before we even played a game, and so they're really excited about what we got going on here. But that's the most important thing is signing day next Wednesday.
Well, Coach, for you and, of course, although I know you didn't recruit them, how much of a recruiting tool is it to have a Heisman Trophy winner / most likely Super Bowl, I'm sorry, not Super Bowl, but NFL MVP this year, Lamar Jackson. And, of course, do you have much of a relationship with Lamar? Has he been a part of your process?
Absolutely. You know, Lamar came back last February. That's the first time I met him. He's so humble, number one. What a great human being. But he came back. He just wanted to hang out, see what we're doing. He loved it. So he was able to come back during his off day this past year. When we played Virginia, actually, during that week. He was here for a couple of days. You know, phenomenal human being. You know, he'll be back here in the offseason. But he's right now the most exciting football player in the world to watch play football, and I'm so happy for him, particularly obviously because he played football here. So we certainly use his name a lot when we're going out here recruiting.
Rightfully so. He's changing the game at the quarterback position in the NFL, isn't he?
Absolutely. You know, when he came out, there was a lot of people that said, hey, I don't know, maybe he should play a different position, you know. And so, you know, he did not listen to the naysayers. He came out, and he's just doing his thing. And he is certainly changing the game of football right now in the NFL with the zone read, the way he can utilize his legs. But now you can see what he's doing, throwing touchdown passes. I mean, what do you have, 5 Thursday night, you know, this week. So, I mean, he's incredible to watch. I love the way he handles himself, though. He's engaging. He's bringing more fans to the game of football, which we love.
Nwora off the mark. I got to ask you this. If you were a basketball coach, what kind of system would you employ? Would you be up-tempo, defensive-oriented? Just thinking about your background, I think we could go in a number of different directions. What say you?
Well, I certainly think you start from the defensive end. I think you got to be able to score. If they don't score enough points, I feel like we're going to be able to score enough to beat them. So that's the same thing with football. I think you got to be good down the middle. I think you got to have a great point guard. You want to have a great big man. I think that's just how you start your basketball team. And then you got to create depth. And I think Coach Mack this year has got some of the most depth in the country. I think that's why his team has got a chance to win it all this year, and arguably one of the best players in the country as well. And number 33 right there, he's a great player.
He'd be a great tight end for the Cards football program, wouldn't he?
Let me tell you who my guy is, though. Number 24, Sutton, right there, man. I love that guy right there because he plays so hard. Look how he's built, too. Very physical. I think that'd be my guy if I had to pick me a tight end. I'm going with Sutton.
Yeah, Corey called him the glue guy earlier this first half, and he's got some offensive numbers that rival that of anybody in the country, kind of under the radar offensive efficiency and things of that sort.
No question. Well, I think just because of how hard he plays, you know, those kind of guys right there, they are the glue because they're going to do all the dirty things that you need for a football or for a basketball team, you know, to be competitive. And he's always around the basket, so I think that's why his shooting percentage is so high as well. But I love the way he plays. With his effort, it's contagious, and that's how you win championships.
Cards turn it over. And that'll do it for us, Coach. Appreciate the time. Congrats on a fantastic
Thank you, guys.
season.
Appreciate you having me on here. All right,
Scott
guys.
Satterfield. Of the year, Scott Satterfield honored along with his staff. And he encouraged the fans here in the Ville to buy those tickets to the upcoming Music City Bowl. Mississippi State will be the opponent December 30th, Corey. And tell you what, the big deal about going to a bowl game, year number 1, you go to a bowl game, so you get to play on national TV that extra time. You get those extra practices. 15 or so extra sessions, grow this young team up a little bit more. They'll be more of a factor next year in the Atlantic Division of the ACC.
And you know what else you get? You just put it on them, expectations, pressure. So therefore, you've got to be better that second year or you have that sophomore slump. So now, of course, not everything that comes with a great first year is great, especially when you consider the expectations that come in that second year. But Coach Satterfield, of course, enjoying his time at Louisville and doing a great job, ACC Coach of the Year, and continuing to appreciate the fan base here at this great university.
Williams inside, a chance for 3 the hard way as Louisville back to its largest advantage at 20. Foul goes against Anderson. An impressive bounce back first half so far, and kind of what the doctor ordered after a weird game against Texas Tech, and that's what it was.
It really was, and only 6 turnovers thus far for the Cards, and of course getting everything they wanted. The offensive end of the floor shooting 62.5%, and that just went up after the 3-point play by Malik Williams. So, you know, you're getting that, but this is not a game that really prepares you for the level of action that you're going to see in the ACC when it comes to playing half-court teams and executing offensively. But this does help prepare you to be able to take care of the basketball better. And that was something that I thought that the Cards really needed coming into the day. And now they're also playing David Johnson more minutes, getting him on the court with Darius Perry, with Fresh Kimball, with Ryan McMahon, and making sure they're starting to develop that rotation in the backcourt that's going to help them as the season goes along.
Johnson, we mentioned, is 4 months after undergoing shoulder surgery back in July. So he's really just getting back into the swing of things. In your opinion, if he gets going, how does David Johnson change the complexion of Louisville's backcourt?
Well, in talking with their coaching staff, you know, Mike McGee specifically, he talks about David Johnson can do things physically and athletically that most of their guards can't do. You know, they normally tell their guards to get back defensively so that other teams don't get out in transition. But he's such a great athlete, they have to allow him to go to the offensive glass. And so, you know, you play differently when you have a guy like that. And you see he's goes 6'4", maybe close to 6'5", a couple inches taller than Darius Perry. But yet, you know, the one thing for him is he's going to have to defensively be able to lock in the way that Perry does. And, of course, the way that Kimball does to give those guys, to make sure that Louisville doesn't drop off at all defensively when he's on the floor.
Andy Gahan checking in for the first time for the Cards. Williams to the bench. Eastern Kentucky, no field goals in just about 6 minutes. And talking with the Louisville coaching staff, the fact that he missed that time at an important part of the year, David Johnson we're talking about. Working on defense as that three is splashed in by Houston King. You know, that part was missing during the time that he missed, and so it's taking him some time to defend every single possession like he absolutely has to, like you have to do as a team to compete for a national championship.
Right now, Josh Nickelberry actually getting onto the court as well. Another member of that, you know, highly touted recruiting class for Chris Mack this year.
Timeout on the floor as EKU will talk things over. Don't forget, coming up Sunday at 6 o'clock, Nothing But Net. That's tomorrow. It's our weekly basketball studio show. We'll preview the week, look back at the best games from the previous 7 days, highlights, analysis, and insight that only we can provide. Tomorrow at 6 Eastern on ACC Network and also live on the ESPN app. And do yourself a favor and check out my good friend Kelly Gramlich, waxing poetic on Nothing But Net each and every Sunday. They do a great job with the show. So we showed you David Johnson, Josh Nickelberry checking onto the court for the first time, that talented freshman class. You look at the numbers, according to ESPN, 4 players ranked in the top 100, led by Sam Williamson, right now averaging just over 6 points per game. But future very bright here, as we've come to understand in recent seasons.
And I'm going to allow you to pronounce his name. I just know the Irish Hulk.
Aiden Igayon.
And when I tell you that this young man is a physical specimen, I'm talking put together like an action figure. This young man, and again, he's one of those guys, of course, that you say if he really becomes a gym rat and puts the time in and develops as a basketball player, you know, I mean, again, now I'm calling Photoshop on this stuff. I mean, there's no way that a human being is that cut up. I'm calling Photoshop. I need some type of proof that picture has not been photoshopped.
King with a layup. Corey off the rails here. And I'm with you. There's no way you or I could get to that level.
No,
At least
no.
I know I could.
I can tell you right now, at one point in my life when I was about his age, I thought I was ripped up. I thought I was in great shape. I would be embarrassed to put my picture beside the picture we just saw of this young man. But I can tell you right now, and the coaches love him. They feel as though he will be a contributor in this program for years to come. And, of course, you know, the sky's the limit for him potentially. But
I mean, he didn't start playing basketball until he was 12. So he's got that natural physique. His Hobbs tossed a little trash after the spin move.
I'm glad you said natural physique, because you can't work out enough to do that.
That just comes like you come straight out of the womb almost looking like that, right? Colonel's in the midst of a 7-0 run to try to work back in it. Nwora was fouled. He'll shoot 2. Lead is 16. It was 21 just a few minutes ago. Jordan Nwora, 83% at the stripe this season, as Trey King just picked up his 3rd. 15 points so far in this fast-moving first half for number 33. What's his next step? as good as he is right now?
Well, I think it's continuing to become more and more efficient. You know, he had 22 points against Michigan, but on 9 of 23 from the floor. Didn't have a great shooting game, 14 points against Texas Tech. And it's going to be being more efficient and recognizing that as the top scorer on the team, whenever you get the basketball, it doesn't mean that you have to shoot it. There are often times where you've got to trust your teammates, and then, of course, that you're going to get it back, or to be able to move the basketball and get the best shot for the team, not always the best shot for yourself. So I love Jordan Nwora. I love what he's done this year. But as far as the next step for him is going to be about making his teammates better, not just about him being the guy that's scoring all the points.
Sanacori bringing him anything in the second half or no?
I mean, you're asking Sanacori to give away a lot, but yes, Jordan Nwora is definitely on the nice list for this year.
Contested jumper by Taylor. The putback is good by Marino. Lead is 16. Shot clock is off. Cards can play for the final shot of our first half. Louisville shooting a blistering 64% from the floor. Not always easy to bounce back after a tough loss. Cards doing that and then some so far.
Well, that shows you the resiliency of this team. Now, granted, the competition isn't the greatest competition. You know, Eastern Kentucky's going to fight and battle, and Malik Williams puts up what could be a Sports Center top 10 nominee tonight on the offensive rebound in his resume here this afternoon.
Yeah, right at his average this season. Meanwhile, the Cards shoot 63% in the first half, and we kind of thought this would be one of those games where they would get a lot of open looks, and when you know it, 50 first half points, the most they've scored in a first half this season.
And I have to correct you on something. I'm only Sanacori with the hat.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so you see, I'm not Sanacori right now.
Did you bring a hat?
I can't, listen, you are asking for way too much information ahead of time. Be patient. I can tell right now, you were one of the kids who was always looking for their Christmas gifts well before Christmas morning.
I'm sneaking in there. I'm looking through the wrapping paper, and I'm trying to figure out what I got. What's your point? Colonels with the basketball to start our second half out of the Ohio Valley Conference. A little stop and pop. All net, the contested J by Brown.
And Brown, who had a 41-point game against Western Kentucky, a big-time scorer, talking with his coach, A.W. Hamilton, earlier today. He talks about the young man has an opportunity to be an elite defender as well. And Hamilton, of course, started his relationship with Jamar Brown when he was actually assistant coach at North Carolina State. Brown from the Raleigh-Durham area, and of course, you know, building that relationship then allowed A.W. Hamilton to get him to come over to Richmond, Kentucky, where he's been a stellar player for the Colonels thus far in his sophomore year.
I do want to give some love to A.W. Hamilton, the former state assistant under Kevin Keats, so at Hargrave Military Academy. But he mentioned to us, EKU on campus, they've raised more than $300 million for facility enhancements, new dorms, and they're really doing a great job trying to get the program to the next level. And that was one of the selling points that got him to Richmond, Kentucky to take over this program. We spoke with him, I don't know, for maybe half an hour earlier today, and upbeat, high energy. You can see what he's trying to sell there at EKU.
Well, and he's a Kentucky native, of course. Richmond, for about 45 minutes north of his hometown, so he's really coming back home. And more importantly, he is a basketball lifer, a true junkie. And he wanted to be in a scenario where he had the resources available to build a successful basketball program. And you see with the pace of play, back-to-back, well, would have been back-to-back three-pointers right there by Brown if he'd have knocked that one down. You know, he's bringing something exciting to Eastern Kentucky. And he has a very positive outlook as to what they can accomplish in the near future.
Lead is 15. It's a big shot off the mark that time from bonus land. And a big response by the Bill on the other side. Darius Perry connects.
And that's a young man who is a very capable scorer. Darius Perry really, for his first, 2.5 seasons thus far at Louisville, has tried to become a point guard. But he is a capable scorer. I had the opportunity to coach Darius Perry at the end of his senior year of high school here at the Kentucky Derby Festival, which was an all-star game played by many of the young players that were coming to Louisville and going to Kentucky and Indiana. and he places in the region. And Darius Perry, I believe, scored 28 points in that game. And Stephen Enoch finishes off another alley-oop from a beautiful find from Ryan McMahon. But he scored those 28 points in that game going up against Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who was going to Kentucky. And I honestly felt like Darius Perry would be a big-time performer at Louisville coming in. And I'm not sold that he still won't be. He's still trying to figure out his way at the point position.
Third foul on Sutton. And Perry really holds one of the keys for this Louisville team this year, as you and I have documented in the backcourt. It wasn't the kind of outing he had that he wanted against Texas Tech last week up at MSG. Turnovers were a bit of an issue, unable to drop any dimes. And that's not going to be the case more times than not. But for that game against a team that played for a national championship last year, obviously he wants to put a better foot forward. He's doing so, at least so far today.
Well, and he's improved tremendously. We talked about coming in close to a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio, which, that wasn't the case before. Last season, he had 50 assists the entire year, and he came into today's game 9 games in with 47 assists. So Perry has definitely improved, but the question becomes for Louisville, is he the guy at the point guard? Is it David Johnson? Is it Fresh Kimball? Or do they continue to do it by committee, in which you haven't seen many successful teams have a point guard by committee over the past, probably 10 to 15 years of college basketball. Normally the successful teams have that one guy that they look forward to running the show.
We talked with Scott Satterfield back in the first half. Can I give you a football comparison? It's like having 2 quarterbacks. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you really don't have a singular quarterback, as Enoch knocks down the mid-range. So you want to have a guy that's going to lead you, that's going to have great vision, can knock down an open look anytime he has it. Perry may be that, or he may not. We'll see.
And I'm going to say there was another coach, and I'm not going to say a name, who said that it didn't work for the 2 quarterbacks, but it actually did work for Florida with Tim Tebow, because they won a national championship under Steve Spurrier.
With him and Lee.
With Chris Lee and Tim Tebow. They were very successful in winning a national championship. So the point guard by committee has actually worked before, as well as quarterback by committee.
You're thinking about the exception as opposed to the rule, but I'm with you. I'm with you.
Samuel Williamson getting to the rim, finishing it off. The opportunity for the and one. We talked about the highly touted freshman class for the Cards, and this is, of course, the highest rated member, Williamson, who started off the season playing great basketball. A double-figure game at Miami to open up ACC play, which happened, of course, November 5th, earlier than has ever happened before.
Did you like that, by the way?
I did. I was a big fan of it. I don't think all the coaches like it, especially the coaches that lost. The coaches that won, they liked it afterwards. But, of course, I think it changes your preparation over the summer and how you have to go about preparing for your season when you know you're going to have ACC competition to start the year off. Jordan Nwora limping down, a little ginger on that right leg right now after the last defensive possession. He's one of those guys that, of course, he's got to be really hurt to come out of the game, because there's no way to score when you're sitting on the bench. And he likes to score the basketball, so keep an eye on Nwora as this one goes along.
I tried to figure out creative ways to do that playing JV hoops back in the day. I could never score from the bench, which is where I said all the time, Enoch inside. Another easy bucket. He's got 17.
And another great pass by Ryan McMahon, who finds Enoch for the easy dunk. The second time we've seen those two connect here in the second half for a highlight. But, I think this is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Cards, simply because they do have to play and take care of the basketball. But they're seeing each guy be successful. Samuel Williamson being successful, getting out on the break. And, of course, we'll talk more about
while Texas has been an inspiration for his mother, Sue, ever since she was diagnosed with breast cancer back in October of 2015. Grew up playing 6 different sports. His parents divorced when he was just 3 years old, and he was very close to his mother growing up. Had breast cancer, underwent chemotherapy. Cancer spread to a lymph node. Later had surgery to correct that. And so far, she has remained cancer-free since. Join ESPN and the V Foundation. fight against cancer. Visit v.org/donate. All donations benefit, of course, the V Foundation and cancer research. Foul will go against Brown. That's his third. You mentioned in the first half too, Corey, great to see McMahon, after turning his ankle briefly, exited the court, now back on the floor. He's moving around quite well.
Yeah, and he's I'm not sure people recognize how important of a figure he is for this team. Just from a leadership standpoint, he is the leader in this backcourt when you consider the fact he's a fifth-year senior. And he's the one guy that's been a consistent here for the entire time. He's been through 3 coaches. And now second year with Chris Mack as this team continues and his program continues to develop. You know, he's the one guy that Mack has been able to rely on. 35 minutes against Texas Tech. And when you see a guy playing that many minutes, when you're playing high-quality competition, you know that's how much a coach trusts you, because he keeps you on the floor and knows that he can't take you off.
Brown nearly traveled. Instead, that caroms out of bounds. It'll stay on this hit. McMahon didn't like that sequence.
And this isn't the game for it, but during the ACC season, I believe there are times we will see Malik Williams and Stephen Enoch on the floor together when there's size to be able to match up against. And that's really the lineup that I would love to see from Chris Mack's group, because not only can Williams shoot the 3, but Enoch can as well. And you can play a lot of high-low action with those 2 bigs. And when it comes time to be able to, when Louisville will have its offensive struggles, I think that's a way to really get involved with being able to play those 2 guys together and having 2 guys that can play in the post as well as shoot the 3, moving Jordan Nwora to the small forward position. And I think the Cards can be successful that way, especially when you play against the North Carolinas of the world. They're going to play 2 traditional bigs. They'll play against Georgia Tech, and you've got James Banks as a shot blocker.
Good pass from Kimball. Williamson over the back. Don't forget, Wednesday we'll have 2 of the top 10 teams in the nation in our college basketball doubleheader. Up first, Virginia and Stony Brook. And then these Louisville Cardinals, #1 in the land, hosting Miami of Ohio at 8:30. That's Wednesday, right here, the ACC Network and the ESPN app. Louisville will get 10 days off after that matchup before traveling just up the road to Lexington. Rupp Arena and the UK Wildcats waiting, and one of the great rivalries in all of college basketball. That's going to be a lot of fun.
That is definitely going to be fun. And you got to imagine there's 2 teams that have both been ranked #1 at some point this season playing against each other. And that will be a huge game for both teams moving forward, not only for developing confidence, but also in the eyes of the selection committee when the season is all over with. You know, talking about possible #1 seeds. Could be the best team out of the ACC, could be the best team out of the SEC. So that game will be important, you know, for many reasons as the season goes along.
I want to put you on the spot. As you look at,
Wait a minute, let's stop before you even go.
I got to put you on the spot.
But if you don't want to put me on the spot, but you're putting me on the spot, you really do want to put me on the spot.
I do.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
I'm going to come
put
clean.
me on the spot. Let's do it.
Your top 5 in the ACC as we get to the tournament in March. So not necessarily right now, but just you've seen a lot of programs. You're going to see them all before the end of the season. In your expert Corey Alexander opinion, give me your top 5 as we get to the tourney.
Okay, right now, and of course, all subject to change. It's my prerogative to change my mind later in the year if I would like. I'll go Duke 1, Louisville 2, Virginia 3, Florida State 4. 5.
Who's number 5?
It's tough. 5 is tough, and I'm going to go out on a limb. You really put me on the spot. I'm going to go out on a limb right now, and I'm going to say the North Carolina State Wolfpack.
NC State.
I believe NC State can be 5. I believe they're ahead of North Carolina right now. And the reason I say is because they have veterans and they have their style of play. They have an identity. I think North Carolina right now is searching for an identity. And I believe that the Wolfpack are playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder after being left out of the NCAA tournament a year ago. So I'm going to go NC State at 5 right now. Kevin Keats, I know you're tuned in, watching your former assistant, A.W. Hamilton, and he's not smiling. He doesn't want me to put him there because the expectations go up. But at the end of the day, I think that is going to be, I think that could be the team that ends up in that 5th spot.
So after the 3 by Cruikshank, the first field goal made by EKU in more than 4 minutes, King was fouled from bonus land as well. So we'll get 3 free throws. So NC State at number 5.
Well, if you look at NC State, they have the senior point guard in Markel Johnson, who has been
I love his game.
Great moments. Okay, Manny Bates is blocking shots on a record pace defensively. Funderburk, who played for A.W. Hamilton at Hargrave, is a load in the paint, okay? You have Devin Daniels, you have C.J. Bryce, who's their leading scorer, Braxton Beverly, who played for A.W. Hamilton at Hargrave. When he gets hot, can be as good a shooter as anyone.
All right, I'm with you on all of that.
Okay.
I'm buying what you're selling.
Okay.
Keep preaching, but where's Carolina?
North Carolina's in struggle mode right now. I've had North Carolina games, and I've also gone as a fan and watched North Carolina play. And outside of Cole Anthony and Armando Bacot, I'm not sure that there's anyone that can be a consistent scorer for North Carolina. And you're asking 2 freshmen to be your best 2 players and your best 2 scorers in ACC play. That's tough. I don't know that North Carolina can really figure it out. I mean, again, I don't know if there's anything to figure it out. This just isn't one of the more talented North Carolina teams that we've seen. They lost 5 guys from last year's team. 3 of those guys were within the top. Well, 3 of those guys were first-round picks. And then, of course, you lose Luke May and Kenny Williams as well. So that's a lot to lose for North Carolina, and I'm not sure if they've been able to recover from that.
Williams connects from downtown, his second 3-ball of the afternoon. Came into this game with just 1 on the season. So that's a good sign for Cards fans. I'm with you on the offense, and we'll see how far Cole Anthony can take the Tar Heels. They'll get Wofford tomorrow again at Carmichael Arena at 4 o'clock Eastern, right here on ACC Network. Here's a steal. Here comes Nwora. And he'll take it the whole way up and in. A chance for 3. Even though he had Johnson breaking open on the right wing. Coming up, the naughty list has arrived. The nice list is here as well. Santa Corey is ready to do. Who's been nice? What kind of presents we giving out today?
We're going to start with the naughty list because the list says naughty or nice, so I'm going with the naughty list first. And I've got 8 members on the naughty list. That naughty list would include Clemson, Syracuse, Boston College, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Florida State, Virginia, and North Carolina. For what? For losing by double figures in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. These are all the teams that lost in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and each and every game they lost. But, I mean, the teams got blew out, and the ACC ended up losing this 8-6 to the Big Ten. And, of course, as an ACC guy, that's just unheard of. Santa Corey is definitely an ACC guy, does not like to see that. So when you look at the shooting numbers, Virginia struggled, North Carolina struggled, Clemson struggled, Wake Forest struggled. I think Clemson got to 60 points. I'm not sure if anyone else on that list scored, over 60 points. So all of these teams in their stocking will get a lump of coal. However, that is only the naughty list. There is more to come. And a couple of these teams will be on the nice list. We start on the nice list. Of course, Virginia Tech breaking an ACC 3-point record with the line being moved back, 21 3-pointers in a game, and also a team that did not participate in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, knocking off Michigan State.
So they didn't
Maui.
participate in the challenge, but yet they beat a Big Ten team.
But they beat a Big Ten team, and so they're on the nice list for that. Duke and Louisville both. They're on the nice list for getting to number 1. Hey, Santa Corey never played on the number 1 team when he was in college. It is an honor to be able to play on a number 1 team. That gets you on the nice list. And, of course, for all things considered, the University of Virginia is definitely on the nice list for giving Santa Corey trash to talk to all other schools and friends for the remainder of his life.
It's interesting. We had teams both on the naughty and nice list simultaneously.
This is true. So they'll get the lump of coal. That goes in the stock. But under the tree, they got big gifts.
The goodies are coming.
Especially University of Virginia. They get a big gift for that one.
Shocker. Well said, my friend. Well said. I didn't know if maybe Dabo Swinney was going to make that list. A little Clemson football back in the playoff, but
Dabo's my guy, but Santa Corey only deals in basketball.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm sure there's someone else on football. There's another Santa for that.
Yeah, I would put Scott Satterfield on there, Dabo Swinney on there, Mac Brown down in North Carolina. The great job he's done.
You know what? You know why Mac Brown would be on the nice list? Because I saw him dancing. I saw video of Mac Brown dancing, and it was nice, which would get him on the nice list.
His dancing videos have gone borderline viral as Perry connects on the breakaway. Louisville in control here against EKU, and we've got an injured player on the other end. Jaquez Hobbs grabbing the back of his neck. And his head coach, A.W. Hamilton, now check on the junior from right here in Louisville.
See Malik Williams going up vertically, coming in, and you see Hobbs backing into the knee of Sutton as he was falling, and then of course a teammate falling on top of him doesn't help. Glad to see him up and in the care of their trainer, but of course whenever you see a head injury, it's going to be concerning. And hoping this young man is okay. Of course, from Louisville, know how important this game was for him to be able to play. I'm sure family and friends here concerned about his well-being right now.
Cardinals back to work. Here's Hicks, the transfer from NC State, connecting on the turnaround.
And of course, Hicks, no stranger to ACC competition, was at NC State while A.W. Hamilton was an assistant there, but towards ACL 4 games into the season. And of course, deciding to make a move when Coach Hamilton moved west to Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. Decided to go along with his coach and found himself a nice role here for the Colonels.
Johnson dropping a sweet dive.
And Malik Williams came out of his shoe at half court. Got caught under the Card's feather.
This is one of the reasons you really like what David Johnson brings to the table, the no-look dish.
And that's not something that you teach. You don't drill that. That's just great court vision, but more importantly, delivering the basketball right into Sutton's shot pocket. Again, it wasn't as though he had to reach for the basketball to try to find and gather himself to shoot it. It came right into his shot pocket. A beautiful find from David Johnson there. Part of the reason why this staff has so much, faith in him moving forward.
Now tomorrow, number 17, North Carolina will play their first regular season game at Carmichael Arena since 1986. Wofford's in town, 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Right here on the ACC Network and the ESPN app. You got to go back to 1986.
86, I remember it well. J.R. Reed playing for the Tar Heels. I can remember also, and I believe it was in that first year, when Len Bias came to the Dean Dome and went to work on Carolina. I believe Maryland was the first team to ever beat North Carolina in the Dean Dome. But I do remember that game. Well, I remember that season where I was a huge ACC fan growing up, of course, and watching every time, especially North Carolina was on TV.
Taylor has 8 with that last triple. The lead is 27, approaching 8 to go. Here's the Yum Center. J.R. Reed, did you play against him?
We were teammates in San Antonio my rookie year. J.R. was one of my veterans. So played with each other in the NBA, played against him, of course, in the NBA, but I'm not that old, Roy.
I was just going to say, he was hard to get around. He was a big dude.
The best thing about J.R. Reed, J.R. is doing a great job. He's actually assistant coach with King Rice at Monmouth right now. But one of the best things I could always remember, love J.R., he couldn't whack the paint. Josh Nickelberry is wide open on the opposite side. That's one you kick it to Nickelberry. Nickelberry gets the 3. Whether he makes it or he doesn't is not Jordan Nwora's responsibility. Here, you drop it off to David Johnson. Allow David Johnson to finish and get a layup. Now your teammates trust you even more so. And again, Nwora was fouled on both those possessions and got free throws out of them. But actually, one was an offensive foul. The second one was offensive foul. The first one he got fouled and made 2 free throws off of. But if he moves that basketball to his teammates, that allows his teammates to defend harder, to rebound better. And they're now involved in the game. And that's one of the areas where, as a star, even a superstar in college basketball, which Jordan Nwora would be considered, you help your teammates get better because you trust them and give them opportunities, especially on easy plays as such.
Johnson turns it over. EKU gives it right back. 77-53, 7:24 to go here in the Ville. Look at them this week, Corey.
Well, that was one of Chris Mack's first phone calls once he got the job at Louisville, recognizing Dino Gaudio had been a head coach at Wake Forest and knew the ACC very well, of course, from big coaching as well as television, as you mentioned, with ESPN. So that was one of his first calls, bringing Dino Gaudio out of the shadows onto the forefront. And Coach Gaudio's had a great time back with Chris Mack and being a part of his coaching staff now in year 2, as they have really developed a great chemistry here with the Cardinals.
We ran into Coach Gaudio pregame, inside, good look. Rejection that time by Kimball. Ripped that one away. Dino had a late trip last night. He was on the road, got delayed at an airport, didn't get back in town until wee hours of the morning, but as always, high energy. Dino's a guy you like to have on your side, Corey. Good dude.
He absolutely is that, and of course, he, was a tremendous help to me in television. Coming in, one of those guys you can always bounce ideas off of, and willing to share his notes about teams and wanting to conversate about them as well. So, with Dino Gaudio, and I'm happy to see him back coaching. I can remember getting started with doing stuff for Nike in the summertime, and Coach Gaudio, Fran Fraschilla, both those guys out on the court with me. Not just teaching, but we're out there playing, demonstrating. Those guys were great at it.
Oh, Dino still plays. He's down at the local YMCA jacking up threes.
You can have it. It hurts. Playing basketball hurts Santa Corey nowadays. I'm not doing it. And I refer to myself as Santa Corey in third person because I still have on the hat.
That was the 4th personal on Hicks. Enoch at the stripe. He's got 19 points this afternoon. 8 of 9 from the floor. He has been rock solid.
But how about
doubling his season average?
And how about this? Chris Mack going back to the starting lineup outside of the fact that Fresh Kimball's on the floor instead of Darius Perry. But this is the starting lineup with a 28-point or 27-point lead right now. Chris Mack keeping his starters on the floor. Now, he did have a lot of the freshmen on the floor earlier, maybe didn't like the way they were performing. And I'm sure we'll see them back in the game for the final 4 minutes or so. But did not like what he was seeing on the floor, so going back to his veteran group right now.
Enoch with 21, Nwora with 22 to lead all scorers. Quick trigger from the wing, back iron, the rebound to Trey King. If you're just tuning in, Louisville basically has led wire to wire in this one. Bouncing back after the loss to Texas Tech. Enoch just picked up his 3rd person.
And Roy, if I'm not mistaken, this is your first game here at the KFC Yum Arena?
I just have one word for you. Wow.
Well, I can tell you right now, one of my favorite places to call a basketball game in this building. The fans are very involved in it. They love the Cards. Very educated, knowledgeable fans about the game of basketball. But when you consider that you're really playing in an NBA arena, we just had a light show during the break. And I'm not sure if you remember the game Rock Band that was on Xbox and PlayStation back in the day. But it was like a 25,000 people version of Rock Band with the dancers on the floor, everything going on. And an amazing place to be able to call a basketball game and be able to come watch a basketball game. And, of course, the biggest television market in college basketball, but it never disappoints. The crowd always shows up to support their Cards.
Nwora with a basket on one end. Brown, the triple on the other. The leading scorer for EKU this season only has 9 points today. Silky smooth as Nwora. It's all net on the runner.
Now, Stephen Enoch threw out a wide open dunk for Jordan Nwora to bring it right back in and score. But again, that was one that Enoch could have simply caught that and turned and dunked the basketball. I'm not sure if he recognized how close he was to the basket on that pass.
87-60. That's something perhaps you'd like to see the roles reverse. And Nwora maybe doing a little bit more of that for his teammates to get this team to the next level.
And I don't want to be critical of Jordan Nwora, because I think he's a great basketball player.
Sure.
I really like him as a kid. But just moving forward, I mean, again, on that last possession where Enoch throws it back out, Nwora penetrates, he could have thrown the lob to Steve Enoch. And again, it's nitpicking, but for this team to be successful, you know, he's going to have to make some of those plays in order to make sure that the other guys on this team. Now, Enoch is a veteran. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to defend. He's going to play. You know, he's going to rebound, do all those things regardless as to whether he's getting the basketball or not. But with younger players, it often become a problem.
3:44 to go. The lead is 29. Advantage following our final media timeout. And I'll tell you what, he's got 7 boards to go along with it. He's run the floor. He's been solid defensively as well, Corey.
Well, and I've seen a number of NBA scouts walking past us on the way out of the building, recognizing that this one could be over. And I honestly believe that there are 3 NBA players, not just 3 pros. You know, when you play overseas internationally, that makes you a pro. But 3 NBA players on this Louisville team, maybe 4 when I look at Williamson. But those 3 would be Jordan Nwora, Stephen Enoch, and Malik Williams. And I believe all 3 of those guys will play in the NBA. And now that I think about it, as they come in off the bench, Samuel Williamson will most likely be one of those guys as well. So this Louisville team is loaded with talent. The question is, does it mesh well, especially when they get into close games, when they get into tight games, which they will see during the ACC and, of course, moving forward into the postseason. But this team has a chance to be a national champion, no question about that. And, you know, which is kind of played along with what has been the case for Louisville all season long. This program, this athletic program, has really continued to grow by leaps and bounds over the last couple of years.
And you think about basketball under Chris Mack, the great job that he's done. We had Scott Satterfield on the show in our first half today. Louisville baseball has reached the College World Series for the last 6 years. Volleyball team just had a huge upset against Texas. A lot of people in these parts talking about that as Hicks just fouled out. So Hicks out, Trey King back on the floor. Slazinski will have one more free throw. He's 3 of 5 at the stripe this season now.
Another young man who's very skilled. Quinn Slazinski played at Huntington Prep in high school and very good high school career, but can shoot the basketball, can be one of those guys who you play as a stretch 4, can pass it, can handle it, you know, has all the tools offensively. Of course, as all freshmen, has to learn to be a better defender.
Why is that? I mean, first-year players can't come in and just lock you down immediately as King connects with the mid-range.
Well, you know this very well because you were a star in high school. So when you're a star in high school, you don't have to play defense. You get to score and do all the stuff that build the bad habits. So when you get to college, now your college coach tells you that you're nobody, and now you've got to start from the bottom and actually play defense because it's the other guys, the stars, like Jordan Nwora, that don't have to play defense.
You're dropping knowledge on me right there. That was fantastic. And I appreciate you game recognizing game as well.
Game recognized game.
Thank
man.
you.
You know how we do.
Finally. 2 free throws for Quinn Slazinski. And a reminder, Nothing But Net every Sunday is our weekly basketball studio show. We'll preview the week, look back at the best games the previous 7 days, highlights, analysis, insight that only we can provide. Tomorrow, 6 Eastern, right here on the ACC Network, also live on the ESPN app. One more free throw, all net. Slazinski had an appendectomy back on October 17th, only missed really 2 weeks. He's got a good start off the bench here tonight. Louisville with 93 points, a new season high so far.
Yeah, there was talk of Slazinski actually redshirting.
I read that.
Yeah, but he was so good in the preseason that Chris Mack felt like, you know, hey, we could possibly need this guy as the season goes along, so they didn't redshirt him. And again, you know, when you consider the length of a college basketball season, and it gets earlier and earlier each year, you know, they start practice in September now, all the way through what could be the early April for Louisville. You never know what happens with injuries, et cetera, to where you need those bodies. And again, if, you know, there did happen to be an injury to one of their key players in that rotation, and Slazinski has to step in, you don't want to be in a situation where you're burning that red shirt late in the year, and because that's not what's always best for that young man, and that they wouldn't have had game action. So, you know, actually, I believe they decided to redshirt Jalen Withers, who will be the guy that redshirts this year, and who's another one of the talented members of this freshman class.
Kings got 10, make it 11 after the foul against Gahan. Lead is 32. Louisville's operated with a comfortable advantage for most of the afternoon. Get a couple of days off. Miami comes to town. That's Miami of Ohio. And then the aforementioned rivalry contests up at Rupp against Kentucky. That'll be after a 10-day hiatus.
That's scary. I'm not sure if I like that if I'm Chris Mack. And, of course, you know, he has more control over the schedule than anyone else. But I don't like a 10-day break before I'm going to Rupp to play against Kentucky, especially considering that Louisville has been great at home, but away from the Yum Center, not so much.
Yeah, you talk to some coaches, a lot of times they like the time off around the holiday season, but for the most part, if it's past a week, you worry about rust. You mentioned the road trip, obviously. A chance to gain some health if you've got some guys banged up. And, of course, that's also right on the heels of the start of conference play, even though Louisville's already played 2 league games already. And there you see it. Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame as January arrives. And before you know it, you're about 10 games deep into ACC play.
And it doesn't get easier. You talk about going to Kentucky, but then having to deal with Florida State, who in my opinion is one of those top 4 teams in the ACC this season. So, you know, definitely doesn't get easier, but in this league, it's a very non-forgiving league when you talk about the ACC. I mean, even when you have Miami coming in or having to go to Notre Dame, you know, this is a Louisville team that a year ago knocked off North Carolina in Chapel Hill and then went and got beat at Pittsburgh. So you know that this league is always going to challenge you at every stop. And you got to be prepared to play. And I'm sure that's something Chris Mack is trying to coach his team up on, being prepared to play at all times, regardless of the opponent.
And for the record, too, I asked you in the first half, did you like opening night, the league opening with a lot of conference games? You said yes. I loved it as well. I was down in Clemson as Virginia Tech came calling, and the Hokies under Mike Young surprised some people then. Of course, they went on to upset Michigan State just a few weeks later. I love the excitement that it generated around the conference to have a league game that early instead of opening up with Cream Puff State. It just gave you something to look forward to. The fans got into it. People watched, and so that's a good thing. It brings more recognition to the sport in the middle of football season. That's not easy to do.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'll have a question. In what city is Cream Puff State located?
I don't know, but they've really recruited well lately. Look out for Cream Puff State next season.
I can only imagine what their uniforms look like.
It's an off-white, an eggshell, if you will. Approaching a minute to play here at the Yum Center, Louisville. In control, the stick back. Gahan connects.
I'm gonna start calling him Photoshop. That's gonna be his new name.
Photoshop.
Photoshop.
Nobody
no
looks
way
that good.
picture's real.
The Irish Hulk.
And from my understanding, I believe David Johnson's grandfather works here in the Yum Center.
That's right. He's a security officer. He came out of retirement a few years ago, and he can't really watch the game when it's actually being played because he's working.
Yes, because that would not be the right adjective to describe security.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
But I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, of course, very proud grandfather of his grandson out here being a part of the Louisville Cardinal basketball program. And supposedly he may sneak his head in every now and then once he hears that name. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. We got a wedgie.
Switch sides. Arrow favors Louisville. It's always awkward when that happens, isn't it?
It is. You know what's worse than a wedgie? Having 2 in one game, a double wedgie. And not only is it worse, it's painful.
I didn't know if you were going to go down the atomic wedgie route.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I
Just
wasn't
a double
that
wedgie.
guy. I wasn't that guy.
Okay. Just double checking.
Now, small thing. Josh Nickelberry, my guy, love him. Gets out in the break. It's a 2-on-1. He has an opportunity to drop it off to a teammate for a layup or take it to the rim and get fouled. He decides to take it to the rim and get fouled. Do you remember the play we showed earlier where Jordan Nwora had the opportunity to move it over to Nickelberry? As Nickelberry comes down the floor and you see there's a wide open man under the basket who I would refer to as Photoshop, who would have maybe torn the rim off. Maybe Nickelberry made the right decision about not passing to him because we would have had to forfeit the last minute of this game because he's so strong he might have torn the rim down. But Nickelberry got looked off earlier in the game and decides not to make that play. Now the fans want the Cards to score here. Chris Mack is going to say no. He does not want 100 points. The fans want 100. Chris Mack is telling his team, do not shoot the basketball. Do not be disrespectful to Eastern Kentucky.
Impressive performance. 99-67, our final score. The Cards bounce back after their first loss of the season, led by Jordan Nwora with 26, and Stephen Enoch pours in a career-high 23. Coming up next, Alabama A&M takes on Miami. For Corey Alexander and our entire hard-working crew, I'm Roy Philpott saying so long from Louisville as we send you back to the studio.
Welcome into the ACC Network studios. Let's show you the highlights of the game you saw right here on ACC Network. Chris Mack, number 1, Louisville, hosting Eastern Kentucky. Darius Perry throws it up for Stephen Enoch. How impressive was he, guys?
Incredible. A career night for Stephen Enoch. That's what we talked about at halftime, what we wanted to see more of. And they were fantastic getting the ball in the paint. Paint touches for this Louisville team opens up the floor. They can move the basketball, get easy buckets.
Want to see more of that too. Jordan Nwora right there finished with 26 points. So